So after working with more than 700 people with tinnitus, I've noticed something. There's always one thing that changes last in a person's tinnitus habituation journey when they go from bothersome to non-bothersome tinnitus. And it's not really the sound of the tinnitus, it's something else entirely. When that finally happens, people say, I think I'm actually almost there. I'm tinnitus coach Frida, and today I'm telling you what the last thing is and why this really matters. Welcome. So when people start working with me, they expect certain things to change first in their tinnitus journey. The distress, the sleep, the ability to focus and work. And those do change, right? Often quite quickly once we put the right things and strategy into place, resources in the community, stuff that we discuss in the one-on-one coaching. But there's always one habit that hangs on the longest, right? And it's very different from what most people expect when I talk to them. It doesn't matter how severe the tinnitus is. It also doesn't matter how long they've had the tinnitus for. And it also doesn't matter how much they already tried. So before I share with you what changes last and what the last stages towards lasting habituation where people experience tinnitus but are no longer bothered by it, let me share with you what changes first. So very early on in the journey, for most people, the super catastrophic thoughts start to loosen a little bit, right? And people go from, I really can't do anything with this anymore, I can't live my life anymore. Those thoughts, they do not immediately disappear, but they loosen their grip a little bit, right? So many people who experience this at the start, they will already see a betterment after the first couple of weeks of feeling, okay, this is actually maybe not the complete truth, right? And it's very, very important because these thoughts can be incredibly dark and incredibly difficult. So the next thing then is often that sleep comes back, sleep improves. And sleep is such an important thing because sleep helps us to emotionally regulate and function properly. Your nervous system, when the sleep returns, starts to feel safer. And in the community, for example, in the 12 weeks program, we have a designated section that is designed to just help you directly with sleep. But all of this is super important. Why? Because people can start re-engaging with things that they've previously not done, right? When you're completely sleep deprived, then it's super difficult to go out with friends and go to restaurants or working with constant distraction, right? So there's also like this kind of like one moment in week 3 or 4 when we work with people or when people go through the program where they say, I forgot about the tinnitus for a whole hour yesterday. And this is real progress and it's huge and everybody celebrates it in the community when that happens with a person because it's visible change, right? Because if you think back a few weeks ago, that same person was maybe lying on the sofa the whole day just paying attention to their tinnitus. So that's a huge step, right? The last thing to go away for most people, right? And I see this very, very frequently in the community is the so-called morning check. And the morning check is the moment when you wake up in the morning and immediately scan for your tinnitus, right? So you wake up in the morning and you're like, is it loud today? Is it different than yesterday? Is it going to be a bad day today? Am I going to be able to do everything that I want to do today? This happens even before you consciously think about it. It's kind of like a subconscious and involuntary process that starts immediately as soon as you open your eyes. Why is this always the last habit to change? Because it started on day 1, right? So the very first morning after your tinnitus began, right? Some people wake up with it. So the brain works this way that first thing in the morning, it assesses the threat level, right? So how much doom am I going to experience today because of my tinnitus? So everything else, right? So the avoidance with sound therapy or masking it the whole time, the doom and gloom research in online forums, etc. All of this sits on top of this one foundational behavior, which is the morning check, the assessment of in how much trouble you're in today. So I want to give you a very quick story from one of the members in the club. And she told me that after a couple of weeks, she said, okay, I sleep fine now, I work okay, and I go out with friends, But every single morning, the first thing I do is check how loud it actually is today, right? But the morning check is still there and she feels a little bit like stuck because of everything, right? So when the check finally stops being something automatic, that's when people start to say, I think I'm actually there. Almost, or I am very close to being completely habituated. And it's really the last domino to fall. And now let's get into why is the morning check so important for many people and where does it actually come from? So the morning check is actually feeling for you like information gathering, right? So it feels like you gathered information. I just want to know like what kind of day is it going to be? But it's actually what we said before already, much more of a threat scanning, right? So your system is looking for how much trouble am I in today? And the brain is asking, is the danger that we've been dealing with for all this time, is that danger still there? And every time you check, every single morning, you're confirming to your nervous system that this sound is important enough for me to immediately check when I wake up and see how much trouble am I in for the day. So you're reinforcing the signal almost, right? Not even like the loudness or the tinnitus itself or the pitch or anything, but the importance and the significance your brain attributes to the perception of tinnitus. Here's a principle from ACT. What you attend to grows. If you water the attention and checking, the attention and checking will become part of your ritual. That will become part of your habitual reason for why you're checking into tinnitus. And the morning check is that last piece of threat tagging mechanism that unwinds in order for you to go from bothersome to non-bothersome tinnitus. There's a lot of other things involved, right? ACT principles, sleep, and it's all inside the community. But the final thing is the morning check. And you can't force the morning check to stop, right? It's like, if we say habituation is like a FART, if you force it, it's probably SHIT. So it's very, very important that you remember there is no forcing going on here. Because if you force, you're going to be disappointed if you continue doing it. You can't will yourself to stop checking. The check isn't the problem, it's the underlying threat symptom, right? So let's get into what that means a little bit more. So what does it look like when the morning check finally stops? It stops as a byproduct of everything else changing. One morning you will wake up and you will realize that you're already awake for 20 minutes and you haven't thought about your tinnitus. Then that becomes more frequent in and of itself, then that becomes the norm. 3 weeks later, that same member that I talked to you about, she sent me a message and said, I just woke up and it's 40 minutes in and I haven't checked. I didn't realize that I have tinnitus. I made my coffee, I looked out the window, I went for the newspaper and I didn't check and I didn't need to. It's not kind of like a massive triumph. It's kind of a byproduct and a culmination of all the nervous system and ACT work that she had accumulated over the weeks in order to teach her brain and her body that the experience of tinnitus is nothing more than any other sound and the threat level decreasing, so that the necessity to check first thing in the morning, even subconsciously, is slowly drifting away. So this is very, very, very important. It's not a massive triumph. It's not a massive victory like the one time she said, I haven't heard it for a full hour. That was a big thing, right? This one is just another step in the journey where a lot of other pieces are already in the place. So if you're listening to this and you're either still doing the morning check because you're not habituated yet, or you have a lot more serious problems with your tinnitus, then I encourage you to do a couple of things. The first thing is go to www.habituate.online. You'll find a little quiz there, answer a couple of questions, and I will give you an email with a summary of your test results, of where you are in your habituation journey and what will be useful for you as a next step. The second thing I can recommend, of course, if you want to, take a look at mytinnitus.club. Yeah? mytinnitus.club is a 12 weeks program and the place where I built this 12 weeks program into a course that you can use in order to build this routine that gets the members there. Time, right? Oh, there goes my tinnitus saying hello, I'm also still here. Hey buddy, good to hear you. And the final thing that remains for me to be said is thank you for watching. Next week I have a new video on tinnitus and hobbies. So in next week's video, I'm going to share with you what that was and how I was little by little able to climb back into that hobby and get going again. Thank you for watching. Thanks for liking and subscribing, letting me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you very soon. Goodbye.